Welcome to another time lapse of a painting I did. It's a beautiful painting. Um, this one's of an Angel Lenormand. It's done for Heroes Tears. We started out with three sketches that I sent into Martin Lambert. He's the owner of Knight Errant Games, and Knight Errant makes Heroes Tears RPG. So I started out with the top one, the left one, with just, you know, Angel Lenormand hanging out. I didn't really have any idea in my head of what it was supposed to look like, any idea of what the dragon was thinking doing. Angel of Norn, by the way, is a two-legged dragon. I just went in and just drew after I got the photo reference. Um, but the dragon, the Lenormand, didn't look large enough in that picture, and it didn't really say anything either. The second one I did, I just wanted the image to be more, I don't know, grand, more, I don't know, like you were coming into this big scene, and I wanted it to look majestic and beautiful. So I don't know, I felt the flow in that one. Ultimately, that's what I went with. I was sort of working on all of these at once. The last one that I didn't go with, but I do like the image. It just felt like it was more narrative leading somewhere instead of spotlighting the Lenormand. It was the number three, and it was just from the side with the Lenormand looking out. So it's supposed to be the Lenormand kind of bathing under this giant waterfall. Lots of flowers, lots of bees around, and that was the description initially, and we're going to get into the time lapse right now. Uh, so I'm just starting out. I took that sketch, blew it up, the number two sketch, blew it up, and I'm looking at just a bunch of reference that I'll need for this, including the Lenormand that I designed, I think probably 3 years ago. My design 3 years ago needed some redesign here, so I do go into, uh, you know, redesigning on the fly the Lenormand without like losing what it looks like. Most of the redesign was just making the feathers look real, because you know animals in life, I guess, anywhere, you don't see like the individual feathers everywhere. It's sort of a hint across the body. Um, I did like in some aesthetic way. I like to see the normal feathers, but it also needs to, or the feathers individually, but it needs to look real. Also, it needs to look like a living, breathing thing. So that's what I was dealing with here. So there was a little bit of redesign, mostly just looking at making it look more realistic. So I have the Lenormand in its own separate layer. I eventually get the Lenormand and several layers into one group, and then have three groups, one for the background and one for the foreground and one for the Lenormand, which is the midground, so I can more easily work on that. And I really wanted to play with the light in this, and eventually nail down like where the light's basically coming from directly above, and there I made a feather brush out of a photo of a feather, really quick, just to be able to quickly lay down like stuff that looks somewhat realistic, without having to go in and detail all that stuff. Mostly I'm using just a hard round brush with about 40 opacity, and not using the pressure sensitivity for opacity so much in the beginning. Tends to build up layers, build up dimension within your painting if you do that. I do later, when I smooth things out, use the opacity sensitivity with the pressure. Um, and here I'm just trying to get that light, that glow in as best I can. I think I used a color dodge layer for that. Um, and you can just do it straight up. You can make a color dodge layer and paint on top of it. It tends to look a little bit better if you fill the layer with black first, which shows nothing, like nothing changes, but when you go in with a color after that point, it just looks less garish, I guess. But mostly I'm just trying to copy, or mimic what the look of this owl is. I think that's a barn owl, not super positive, but I liked the colors I was getting from that. You get some like bluish purple feathers on the other side and like medium gray, and it looks really, really soft, almost like fur under the feathers there. And um, there was some nice highlights coming off the top that were very warm, so I kind of used that mostly for the colors across the Lenorm. And here I'm just trying to, this is sort of the redesign where I wanted that line of feathers to sort of look like scales, but there's not scale, like a crocodile's tail sort of, but with feathers. And I thought it was a pretty good design choice here. And now I get to move into the background a little bit. I'm working on that lower layer under the Lenorm to not mess with what I've already drawn. And just taking a look at all these environment scenes that were sent to me by Martin for this drawing. And I think it was around this point I sent Martin the drawing, what I had so far, and he's like, you need to make the dragon look bigger. So it's like, okay, I need to just show him, like, after I get all this atmosphere in, then I need to put something in that does make it look much bigger. And the answer was put a human person in there, because we know what a human looks like, or what the size of a person is, but it's about comparing sizes to the thing. So you have a sense that a person's going to be roughly like 5 to 6 feet tall, around there. So you can judge that Lenorm based on how big the person is that I draw, if that makes sense. It's the easiest way in an illustration like this to show the dimensions of something. Slightly harder than that is just using atmospheric perspective. The difficulty there is atmospheric perspective with a drawing like this can quickly flatten your piece, and I want the Lenorm to be the focal point and not so much a narrative element. So it was important for me to get that high contrast, high detail with the Lenorm, so I didn't want to use a ton of atmosphere to muddy up things with the Lenorm. I was fine doing it with the far background and other elements, but not with that. So anyway, here I'm still using, for the most part, the hard round brush, just to build up, basically sculpt what's going on around there. And once I'm happy with the environment, I go back into just detailing the human. Halink human is what it is in, I think, in Heroes Tears, but not so important. It's just this is a tribal people that is in Heroes Tears. So this is like an already designed thing. I also designed this group of humans in the game, and I'm just using photo texture overlay to sort of build up. And it's not so much like I'm tracing around like what the photo was. I just wanted like more gritty feel to the rocks here. So I put that in, overlay it over the top, and then mask it off with that little circle inside of a square button in the layers section. Yeah, and I basically just do it all over. For the moss and vines, I use this textured brush. You can make your own texture brush. I'm not even gonna. I can't remember where I got the brush. I like it. I like the set of brushes I'm using now, but I can tell you I switch sets of brushes all the time, and make my own, which tend to work better than what I use from other people. Anyway, painted out one of these flowers, which is actually like a poisonous flower that I designed for the game. Name's escaping me right now, but it's important that the flower looks a certain way, and there are little blue tiny flowers around it. I basically illustrate one, duplicate it a few times, warp it a little bit, and then illustrate another one, do the same thing, put it all over. And as I put these in, I'm spotting areas in the painting I don't like so much, and I go back into detail areas that need a little bit of touch up. And then I continue with the flowers on their own separate layer. The reason being, I'm going to want to go back in here and adjust colors, adjust values. And then with this flower, I knew it was going to take a long time to go back in and put the shadow down. So I actually just I picked up some dark green color, put it under there lightly, semi-opaque. And as I duplicated it, it just added a quick shadow under that flower. It was a nice way to be able to put all that in. And here come the bees. Which I think I tile the layer and not the bees from the Wicker Man. But that's something to keep you engaged in your drawing. If you're not, if you've been drawing for a very long time, and I think this was like a 15-hour drawing, somewhere around there, painting, sorry, you want to do things to sort of make yourself entertained. If you're getting bored just detailing everything. And that was a little joke to myself. Anyway, so I've gotten everything in now. I just copy what's there and sort of mask off into the water the reflection to make it a little bit more realistic, and adjust all the colors and everything. Get a little bit of atmosphere in between us and the far background there. Little person up there with mist at their feet. I didn't like how soft the waterfall was, and I adjusted that, and then I wanted to put a little bit of grit over the whole thing, make it look a little bit more tactile. And there you go. That's the final image. I hope you enjoyed it. Click like, subscribe, and visit PrestonStoneArt.com. Thanks, bye.